The level of human suffering in Gaza is intolerable. Canada has long been committed to a two-state solution, an independent, viable, and sovereign Palestinian state living side by side with the state of Israel in peace and security.
Look, he's a different kind of a guy. He's okay. He's a team player, pretty much. But here's the good news. What he says doesn't matter.
The latest chapter in the Canada-US trade standoff has unfolded with an unmistakable air of political retaliation. President Donald Trump has carried through on his threat, boosting tariffs on Canadian goods to 35% effective immediately. The White House says the move is in response to Canada's alleged failure to curb fentanyl trafficking, but few in Ottawa, or anywhere else, are taking that explanation at face value. The timing is clear. The tariff hike follows close on the heels of Prime Minister Mark Carney's announcement that Canada will recognize a Palestinian state. It's a policy decision that aligns Canada with much of the international community, but clearly struck a nerve in Washington. Trump, who has spent months publicly criticizing Canada, found in this decision an opportunity to escalate the trade dispute. For Trump, the tariff hike is more than economic policy, it's political theater. His administration is sending a message. If allies act independently on global issues, there will be a price. But Carney is no stranger to political pressure. The former central banker and now Prime Minister has shown a steady hand throughout this escalation, signaling that Canada will not be bullied into reversing its foreign policy decisions for economic relief. Trump's own comments show a pattern. When asked about Carney's recognition of Palestine, he downplayed it in public, calling it not a deal-breaker for trade. But behind the scenes, his administration immediately advanced the tariff hike. This dual approach, calm rhetoric paired with hard policy, has become a hallmark of Trump's negotiating style. But in this case, Carney isn't playing along. Canada's strategy has been deliberate. The trade delegation remains in Washington, but Canadian officials are tight-lipped about their discussions. This silence is calculated. In contrast to Trump's public threats, Ottawa is projecting discipline and resolve. Canada knows it holds cards in this negotiation, its reputation as a reliable supplier of critical goods, its trade relationships beyond the US, and perhaps most importantly, the growing global perception that it is standing on principle. On the world stage, Canada's recognition of Palestine is not an isolated move. The United Kingdom has set a timeline for its own recognition unless specific conditions are met in Gaza. France has signaled its intent. Norway, Spain, Ireland, and others have already taken similar positions. In this context, Canada is acting in line with a broad international consensus. Trump's decision to tie tariffs to this policy puts the United States at odds not just with Canada, but with much of the democratic world. That global context is important. Carney's strategy is rooted in alliances. Canada has been strengthening its trade links with the European Union, expanding deals with Asia, and deepening cooperation with the Commonwealth. These relationships provide both economic alternatives and political backing in moments like this. When Trump raises tariffs, Canada can look elsewhere for trade opportunities. The economic impact of Trump's tariffs is significant, but it cuts both ways. At 35%, tariffs on Canadian goods will raise prices for US consumers and disrupt industries that rely on Canadian inputs. Everything from automotive parts to agricultural products will see increased costs. In sectors like aluminum, steel, and critical minerals, where Canada is a major supplier, US manufacturers face the prospect of supply shortages or higher-priced alternatives from other markets. Carney's government is using this leverage carefully. While Canada has not announced retaliatory tariffs yet, it has hinted at targeted measures should negotiations fail. These could focus on politically sensitive US exports, as Canada has done in past disputes. At the same time, Ottawa is emphasizing stability at home. Federal and provincial governments are preparing support for industries hit by the tariffs, including export financing, market diversification programs, and domestic investment incentives. In the broader political landscape, Carney's approach is winning Canada international sympathy. Trump's use of tariffs as a response to foreign policy decisions is widely seen as overreach. While some countries may hesitate to challenge the United States directly, they are willing to show solidarity with Canada in other ways, through trade, investment, and diplomatic coordination. This is exactly the kind of coalition Carney has been quietly building. For Trump, however, the tariffs serve another purpose: domestic politics. By framing the dispute as a matter of national security, linking it to fentanyl trafficking, he positions himself as defending American interests against a neighbor that in his narrative is not cooperating. This rhetoric plays well with parts of his political base, even if the direct connection between fentanyl and tariffs on steel, aluminum, or agricultural goods is tenuous. The reality on the ground is that Canadian industries are adapting. Manufacturers are exploring alternative supply chains. Agricultural exporters are expanding into Asian markets. The energy sector is increasing shipments to Europe. While the US remains Canada's largest trading partner, the share of exports heading south has been gradually declining as diversification takes hold. Carney understands that this moment is about more than a single tariff hike. It's about setting a precedent. If Canada concedes now, linking its foreign policy decisions to US trade pressure, it invites similar tactics in the future. By holding firm, Canada reinforces its sovereignty and signals to other countries that it will stand by its positions even in the face of economic pressure. Internationally, this stance is being noticed. European leaders have publicly voiced support for Canada's right to make independent foreign policy decisions without economic coercion. Asian trade partners have accelerated negotiations on agreements that will expand market access for Canadian goods. The world is watching, and in many capitals, Carney's resolve is seen as a model for managing relations with an unpredictable Washington. Domestically, Canadians are rallying behind their government. While the tariffs will cause short-term economic pain, there is a broad understanding that conceding to Trump's demands would undermine Canada's independence. Political parties across the spectrum, though differing on specifics, largely agree that Canada cannot be seen to reverse a major foreign policy decision in exchange for trade relief. Trump's threat that Canada could become the 51st state has also backfired, hardening Canadian public opinion against bending to US pressure. In provinces like Ontario, Quebec, and Alberta, home to industries most affected by the tariffs, support for diversifying trade has grown. Polls show a rising willingness among Canadians to endure short-term hardship to protect long-term sovereignty. As the August deadline for broader trade negotiations approaches, both sides are digging in. Trump is betting that the pressure of tariffs will force Canada to make concessions. Carney is betting that Canada's alliances, its diversified economy, and global support will give it the resilience to withstand the pressure. What is clear is that this is no ordinary trade dispute. This is a test of political will, national strategy, and international alignment. Trump may see the tariffs as a tool of revenge, but Carney is treating them as an opportunity to demonstrate Canada's independence and global partnerships. In the end, the outcome may not be decided in Washington or Ottawa alone. The economic realities, rising costs in the US, shifting trade flows in Canada, and growing global alignment on issues like Palestinian statehood will shape the options available to both leaders. For now, the world sees a United States that is using economic measures to pressure allies on foreign policy, and a Canada that is standing firm. Trump's tariffs may dominate the headlines, but Carney's strategic patience and the support of international partners could define the legacy of this confrontation. Canada is not seeking a fight, but it is prepared for one. The 35% tariffs are a serious challenge, but they are not an endgame. For Carney, this is a moment to prove that Canada can defend its values, protect its economy, and strengthen its global position even in the face of its most powerful neighbor's pressure. The world is watching, and so far, much of it is watching with Canada.